And we are live once more. Yeah, every single time. It just gets a little easier for you.
So, we, tonight, Jose, we introduced you to another one.
Yes. It was quite the high caliber performance.
Was you working on that the whole movie?
Oh, yes. From the moment that it started, I was like, when am I going to get to drop this one? Might as well be right away.
Took a note in his phone
Yeah,
as soon as
exactly.
it started.
The movie's called Calibre.
Come up with a movie pun.
Yeah. Yeah, if it's a good movie, it's a high caliber movie.
So, first impressions.
I thought it was wonderful. I found it really interesting that you gave me a small warning that it might be a bit boring at the beginning, but I actually thought that even this one actually, in my personal opinion, ramped up even faster than Creep, just because I didn't really know where it was going even more than that movie. Sure, like the whole hunting situation became very apparent, but I wasn't really sure where the issue was going to really start coming in. Was it going to be a supernatural issue? Was it going to be, like what ended up happening in the movie? So because of that, it had me far more on my toes, as opposed to in The Ritual, where I always kind of figured that it was going to end up being some form of supernatural thing. If it's like this many people, it's either them against a village worth, full of weirdos, or or a supernatural thing. So I thought that was great. How long was it that you guys saw this movie?
So we picked this up 3 months ago or so.
It was probably, I would say 3 to 5 months ago we found it.
So surprising, because apparently this came out in 2018. We had no idea.
It may not have been on Netflix the whole time.
Well, it's a Netflix movie.
Yeah, it's supposedly.
Never mind.
Yeah. We were just saying that, it gives us hope, because that just means that you never really know when something might just pop up in front of people's eyes, and they'll come to start liking it. So, yeah.
And also thank you, Netflix's algorithm. So yeah, so Hannah has this fun hobby of putting on random movies all the time while I'm sitting next to her, and if it's interesting enough, I start to pay attention, and this one grabbed me probably within the first 15 minutes, or when the exclusive scene that we're talking about kind of kicks off the movie's tension. But yeah, and I knew as soon as we finished it that I was like, we got to talk about this fucking movie.
Yeah.
I knew it was good when he put his game down about halfway through the movie.
Yeah, so Marcus and Vaughn, really good friends. Been friends since they were adolescents, it sounds like.
15 years, I think you said.
Yep. And they're essentially, it kind of seems like they're doing a send-off to his bachelor, to his essentially Vaughn's last bit of bachelor life, because he now is actively, coming father-to-be. So they go off hunting, and I thought that the whole introduction with the townspeople was very well made. Very well executed, because they provide the first foil of antagonism, and as I'm watching it, I'm like, okay, is it going to be a situation where there's going to be like reprisal to Marcus's like hanging out with that girl, and is that going to be the catalyst of the situation? It kept me they kept me kind of bristled from that moment on.
I thought that scene was, especially hearing you talk about it now, especially well done, because it seemed like enough to start the movie, but actually it was just foreshadowing, and they really rode that line with it to make you think it was a bigger thing than that.
Yeah, I thought it was really, really good. What was the name of the of Vincent Van Gogh? Just huge Doctor Who fans over
Logan.
here. So
Logan.
Logan. Tony Curran. That guy's such a great actor.
Yeah, he really is.
He
brought it.
Something about his voice to me just like it captivates me, like to the degree that like when people say like people chew scenery, like that's kind of what it feels like to me with him sometimes, just because like I just have a hard time wanting to pay attention to anybody else.
What a compliment.
Yeah, he's very good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought that him being the supporting antagonist was a very, very solid choice in terms of like the movie's dynamics and stuff like that, because he had every single reason. And spoilers, as everyone knows, is that
full
watches
spoiler
this.
every
Yeah,
time,
he had every single reason to want to be right in with the bloodlust when it came to the comeuppance at the end of the movie, and his mannerisms, his soft voice, the kind of warmth that Tony Curran just exudes in his characters, and very well. Unfortunately, as it maybe he might consider it a typecast. Maybe at this point in his career, perhaps maybe he would like to play different types of characters. But in my personal opinion, he just does such a good job at being the level head, in a room like that.
Mm-hmm.
Even when he was playing Vincent Van Gogh in Doctor Who, although he was in an erratic, position, he still just came off so whimsical.
Mm-hmm.
It's because you can see his gears turning in situations.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he might not have a line, but everybody's watching him.
Yeah, unlike Brian, his brother, in the movie, you could, again, beautiful casting, because I mean the guy who actually played him, Ian Pryor. We're looking at this on Wikipedia, guys. We're trying to give you solid information here.
We're trying to be a little more professional.
Yeah, exactly.
Even if mispronounced.
Yeah. No, yeah, that Brian just perfectly, like, his eyes steeled the entire time. The moment that he comes on the scene, that he's not like sure, you can try to talk him down, but at the end of the day, he's already made up his mind long beforehand.
He was actually the first one to action when they found the bodies. Like, everybody took a moment to process, and it was like he didn't have that moment to process. He was like, they're gone, and he was shotgun in hand and into the woods.
Mm-hmm. And especially considering that if you rewind just a couple minutes back, Logan is the one that mentions keep an eye on them when they're all huddled together as they're beginning to divvy up the people. So it's not like as though Logan is like being blindsided by the potentiality of these two newcomers being the ones that could potentially do it. But it just went to show the fact that Brian's mind was already in that position where, I mean, of course he already had Marcus's number just from the night before, having had like you'd wonder, is that girl like 18 coming to be?
No, I think it's just a small town thing.
You think? Okay.
I think that's like the dad and the brother.
Right.
And she's like a troublemaker, and they're trying to keep her out of it.
I mean, for a town of a couple thousand, maybe
maybe
to call you a sex pest. I mean, there has to be some positive feedback loop happening there in terms of that, in terms of Kara's behavior. And
I mean, I'm gonna say, like, up front, the town is probably smaller than that. It had a very much of like a vibe from the town I grew up in, and there was 600 people.
Okay.
So
every time they did a wide shot, I'd look, and there were just so many more trees than houses, like next to each other.
Yep.
It's just like so easy to see that the vegetation's just very quickly like overtaking everything around. And the way that lady was just scraping her car, like, certainly not going.
That's like a representative of the will of the town.
Yeah, honestly, like. It's like, yeah, how can we say a lot without showing too much?
Hey, Peggy, go stand over there and just like try to scrape the ice.
Yeah, honestly, but you got nowhere to be. Like,
that's what we want you to do.
Mm-hmm. That's her acting debut for that lady. It's just like, like, really think about it. The director's just like really trying to like get her psyched up for the moment. It's like, it's the middle of the movie, all right? You're really showcasing the energy around the place.
You're the star, Peggy.
You're the star. Knocking you out of the park, Peggy. You're doing it.
I mean, to the degree that we're talking about it, so much, she must have done something right.
I'll remember her character forever.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Man,
so what was like the spectrum of feelings you went through? Like, let's start from when the shot is taken. When the movie really kicks it up a notch.
For sure, from the actual moment, like from the actual climactic moment, I would say bafflement at first, because I did not think that that's where the movie was going whatsoever. Good Lord.
Isn't that great? The surprise of that? That was what shook me too.
Honestly, I thought it was gonna be a whole. I mean, I personally thought it was gonna be a whole thing where they were just gonna razz him the whole day because he missed the deer, you know, like, and it was just gonna be like a, you know, something along those lines. Maybe that's just the cliches, you know, hearing around in my mind, you know.
Right.
But I thought it was just gonna be like a razzing to separation to potential having to, you know, empower, or, you know, like I thought that's perhaps where the movie was gonna go. Nope.
Left
Nope.
turn.
Yeah. Yeah,
So-
I thought so. Baffled for sure. Did not expect to see that one go. To see it go that way, and then the legalese inside of my mind just began cranking away right
How
after.
can
It's
we
like,
get
okay,
out of this?
well, the kid's dead. So what? So what are we looking at here? Like, you know, it's like you had no intention of doing so. You know, where the parent? Okay, so
Okay, so then the parents.
so yeah,
shows up.
it's the parents' fault.
It's he did. He said that
Yeah.
during the watching of the movie. He said, I think you said
Yeah.
child endangerment
Yeah.
or something like that.
Child neglect. I said child neglect. Yeah. I was like, you're out in the
That's
middle
what
of
it
a
was.
forest and you're not keeping track of your kid, all right? Sure, it's the last week of hunting season, but it's still well within hunting season, sir, all right?
Kids should be wearing orange, and you know
Yeah,
that.
and you know that, yeah. It was a dark blue, are you kidding me? That kind
Asking
yeah.
for it.
Yeah.
So your legal cap then? Did you what?
Huh? Yeah, my legal
after the dad died, did you have to twist it sideways?
the legal yeah after the dad died, I was still on the legal clockings because of the way that the posturing of the scene gave them a lot of defensibility, in my personal opinion. I am no criminal defense, I neither work in criminal law or anything like that, but just from just viewing the situation and having been a witness to a particular degree, I can give them a lot of defensibility, because I don't think anyone could ever say that man will be in a higher stage of grief than having had his son die right in front of him. You know,
Holding
grief.
a gun.
Yeah, exactly. While
Finger on
holding
the
a gun,
trigger.
looking at the man who actively killed his son, and he knows it because the guy is saying, "I'm sorry for it.
I didn't see him.
I didn't see him." Exactly. So, in my mind, this man is a danger. He really, really is. He is a danger both to himself, because he could turn that gun on himself, you know, or he could easily just lash out manslaughter style and end up killing him. So, in my personal opinion, Marcus did do the right thing by killing the other guy.
Ooh.
Yeah, because I don't think shooting up to the air would have done it. I think that would have only rattled the guy more to potentially having shot.
What about shooting in like the leg or something? Like, why did it have to be like an instant kill?
I think maiming might be worse. I don't know about your personal constitution, but I think that maiming someone would probably be worse, because what are you gonna? You can't tourniquet a leg. You know, someone just got shot in the leg, and if you shoot them in the artery, they're gonna die way slower, with a lot of yelling. You
Yeah,
know?
but lots of people get shot in like the limbs and stuff and don't die, or like even like aim for the feet, even just enough to get him. You know, not like shoot him, but like even if you just distract him for a minute and then they can at least get the gun from him.
Again,
the problem
I am
is that he's holding a gun.
Yeah, I'm no gun expert, but I'm pretty sure that the point is always to kill. You know, you shouldn't be actively trying to hurt, like put something in harm. You know, like in terms of like wounding it. Like if you're shooting at something, you should actively be trying to kill it. You know, and that's most of the reasons why police officers shoot a ton of times, because it isn't, you know, like once they have already deemed you that degree of threat, it's best to just terminate the threat altogether than it is to try to maim someone. Unfortunately.
Yeah, because if you take a shot and you miss like a limb too, then you have a whole other problem. He's clear to shoot you.
Yeah,
now.
exactly. And on top of that, something has to be said about the moment by moment aspect of it, because if he shoots once, right, and kills, okay, that's a one-to-one action. But if he shoots once, hits the guy in the leg, and the guy's still holding the gun, and now he's like this, and then he has to shoot again. Now there's a lot more premeditation to that murder. You know, because even if you still want to pin Marcus for a full-on, you know, homicide, it's at least in the context of before they started fiddling around with stuff, full on manslaughter, I would say.
Yeah.
You know, like he was afraid for his friend's life.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it was manslaughter teetering onto self-defense. So during that whole time, I was like, okay, this is a shitty situation. You know, like if anything, the thing that's gonna be hurt the most is your psychology.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Yeah.
your psyche is just gonna be in harm's way for a long time. And as I even said throughout the movie, I'm sure that Vaughn, having been the guy who pulled the initial trigger and killed the kid, probably wants some form of retribution or punishment, anyways. Even like the way that he has to processes it, like it would have not been, he would not have been able to hold it together the way he is right now at the end of the movie, you know, if he didn't have to pay, in my personal opinion, the retribution of having had to kill his friend as payment, essentially, for the blood debt of having done that. You know, like he now knows that he's actively complicit, like he you know, like something, like, and he had to pay for it, you know, I mean, further away than, you know, because killing the kid on accident isn't, you know, the same thing as having to actively hold the gun to kill your friend,
right.
You know, even though, you know,
It's,
from an outside, you know, from an objective perspective, it is still just you holding a gun and you pulling a trigger and a human, you know, having been dead, you know, all things being equal, you know, like the same three actions are still the same, but you know, then wrapping them within the context that the movie allows you to, you know, holds them in a whole different light. And I personally don't think, and I really would like to hear your counter in terms of like how you might think that Vaughn might have actually been able to like lead like a normal civvy life. You know, like,
well, it's interesting that you said, because what I was thinking after the first time I watched it was that, well, and after the second time, was that at the end of the movie, in particular, that like scene of the 1,000-yard stare, I was just thinking of like, it got me thinking of like what crazy level of survivor's guilt must this guy have? And now that you've sort of distinguished the two types, it's almost like he traded one for another.
mm-hmm.
Like he, for, you know, whether it was more out of wanting to save his own life and actually go home to his wife and kid, or whether it was more out of wanting to pay some penance for the guilt that he already had. But yeah, either way, it's like, does it double? Does it cut in half? I don't know, but it must be. Yeah. How could you ever live a normal life?
How does guilt weigh in? How does guilt weigh on you in that kind of way? Mm-hmm. I mean, being a person who has never had to murder somebody, you know, either accidentally or through genuine conviction.
So you claim.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. As far as my attorneys always
allegedly.
As far as my attorneys always make me preface, I have never, nor shall I ever, murdered someone.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, the kind of weight of that, it's like, and how exactly do you go about partitioning your guilt to to that certain degree? It's like, okay, do you feel most just guilty about the kid you shot? Do you feel guilty about the dad that didn't die in association from your friend trying to save you? And then is there even enough hours in the day to then feel guilty about the fact that you had to kill your friend after the fact? You know, like,
I mean, I'm sure it just works in, like, probably something triggers him to think of one thing, and then it always comes as a package deal.
And what a moron to name his kid Marcus. Yeah. Didn't he? Yeah, because I'm pretty sure I saw that at
I missed that.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that if we were to go back, not that we're going to right now, but if we were, I'm pretty sure that at the end when he goes into the kid's room, on the wall, like, it has the word like the name Marcus spelled out on the wall.
Does he never want to be happy?
Exactly. Exactly.
He wants to carry that forever or something. It's weird because this is almost
That's
illuminating of like, sorry, I was just like the aftermath of the movie. If you like keep drawing the line down, because this guy his life is ruined forever.
Oh, 100%.
Like this marriage is gonna fall apart.
Yeah.
For sure.
And she already sees it.
Mm-hmm.
He's gonna be a bad father too, probably.
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say that particular thing gives a little bit more credit to Jose's argument as well, of like a repayment thing is like, he had to kill his friend, so now he has to name his son after him. Like, maybe he thinks in those terms.
Yeah, it's very possible and very probable that that's pretty much exactly what's happening, is that in some vestige of Marcus, to retain some purity, like, okay, this Marcus can potentially have, another chance, essentially. And
Rebirthing of Marcus.
yeah, essentially, yeah. And I would really like to conjecture as to what kind of parent he would end up being, because I'm sure a lot of people have had to deal with a parent who has had to have this kind of baggage that that you as a child never got to be privy as to why the fuck your dad is always in such a shit mood, or like
children of veterans.
Yeah, or
PTSD.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
That's one thing is, like, I would just picture a coping mechanism that becomes kind of its own villain in that circumstance.
Mm-hmm. I would only hope that life itself becomes worth it enough to make the sacrifices have been worthwhile. It's like, yeah, it's really, nothing can turn back time. Nothing can make those people come back to life, But it's like, can I make it so life is not any more shit from this moment forward, essentially. One thing that I kept coming back to when it came to this movie, especially after the murders, and they the post, like, their post frenzy, essentially, it really made me think of Crime and Punishment.
That's what I was thinking of the whole time.
Yeah,
dude, the whole time.
And how wonderfully they did in visualizing the inner paranoia that those characters, like, that you automatically just inhabit that alienated place, essentially, the moment you've committed that, like, kind of societal taboo.
What was that detective's name?
Porphyry.
Yeah, it was like everybody. You could see Porphyry in everybody.
Yeah, exactly. Everybody, every kind of strange gaze that somebody gave you automatically just lit up every red flag that they were in when they were at that bonfire festival, because you have to be, right? At that point, you are enemy number one in terms of the local populace, because you murdered someone.
Mm-hmm.
So
have you read Crime and Punishment, or do you know the story?
No.
Oh. Well.
Then you should watch our lethal introspection video on Crime and Punishment. It's a little long, but
now.
It is great. Yeah.
Well, so Crime and Punishment is like, this guy sets out he kills this lady because he thinks he knows he can get away with it, basically. And the whole book is just what happens after that, right? And it's like this weird fever dream of him and paranoia.
So
and
I know what you've told me about Crime and Punishment.
Yeah,
because I was with you when you read it.
Yeah. At the end of
you don't remember that.
at the end of the day, it's just a big story about the ramifications of guilt,
Yeah.
and how society will pretty much pull it out of you. And low key too, like very low key, just little digs here, little digs there. Whoever made this movie probably read Crime and Punishment at some point, or watched the movie.
Definitely.
Because even when they were at that second bar scene after Brian had, like, given them the pint and stuff, and the guy was just, like, so on it when it came to any sort of, like, extra detailing, that he was like, they, how do you know that it was they? It's like, how does he know his age? Like, where are these extra assumptions coming from that, like...
Yeah, that was the obvious one.
The one after he slashed their tires that morning, that after they were planning on leaving that morning, had him up against the car. Like, the way that this movie kept replaying that tension over and over and over. It was like wearing a big, thick blanket on the edge of your seat, kind of like, oh, what's going to happen next?
To hold on to that analogy, kind of feels like multiple blankets at the same time, and whenever those scenes are happening, you think that, they remove one blanket, but it's out the total fake out, because the reason why they were there is because of the fact that they were there because of Kara. Like, they were there angry because of the situation from last night, and you're thinking that they're already gonna begin getting their comeuppance on that angle.
It's so smart. It's such a good tool. They played with it the whole time.
Yeah,
all the way
yeah, especially with such a minimal cast. Like, they already made themselves work with scarce tools by setting, right? Be like, okay, small town. By its very nature, there can't be that many people. So, like, the people that they do showcase have to really pull their weight, essentially. And they do. every single one of them does a really great job, because even the supporting cast, just the good old boys, I will call them, that just are in the background, like it really does feel like at any moment that they could be the ones that like end up catching them off guard or whatever. Like there's just so many little instances where you think that the shoe's gonna drop, and you're like, okay, the whole rest of the movie, now the movie is gonna be about the resolution about that, and like, oh, now it's gonna be about
well,
it.
It's like a group mentality that makes you keep an eye on everybody, because it's like they're a small town. We only see a handful of people, and a couple of times they even refer to themselves as the family.
Right. Well, I mean,
so you're watching everybody's looks all the time. You're assuming everybody's talking.
Well, we're at least being privy to a family that's very prominent in that town. Like they, the between the two brothers, like they pretty much run ship in terms of how new development's gonna happen, how keeping morale apparently and stuff like that around the town. Like it befalls upon them. So it makes even more at that point. Then it made even more sense why it was so easy for them to be able to have them find the bodies so quickly,
Yeah. I think they played a little with movie magic there to try to make you think it was, It could have been 20 minutes, like you said, or it could have been like 3 hours in the middle of the night that they were searching to.
Yeah, who knows? I mean...
But in one night is still pretty impressive for, what did they say, hundreds of miles of woods?
Yeah. I mean, I personally thought that it was a couple hours, and the only inclination I have of that is just because when they're showcasing them walking through the woods, right, and they're not yelling out any names, like they're walking so slow to the degree that it almost feels like a dilated time, like mechanic, like when they're showcasing everybody else, like
there is some little scene fades too.
Yeah, like everyone else is doing a lot of work.
Yeah, and they said when they first drove into the woods to search, they said, oh, they're going the wrong way, and they were relieved because they went to an entirely different place. So I was always made to assume that they walked a great distance before they found the bodies.
That's true.
Yeah, because eventually they did get exactly to the right place. So, yeah, and I bet that it must have really sucked for them too. No wonder they weren't saying anything, because they're like, okay, well, I guess we're going back that way. Like, we're starting from here, but then walking back that way.
Yeah, could you imagine? Okay, we're going to start on the far end of the woods, and we're walking all the way back tonight with this dog.
Seriously, because all of a sudden they come out with this gigantic German Shepherd, and it's like, okay, well, now they're screwed. For sure.
Now they're
as
sure
soon
fucked.
As I saw
for
that.
Sure.
Because it's also like, it's Brian's dog, too.
Right.
So it's like, tell me he doesn't know his own family scent.
Yeah. Yeah, it's very true. Yeah, oh, you know what? I didn't really think about that to that degree, that it was, like, already a family dog. It wasn't like somebody just brought their dog to try to come help the search party.
No, he knows exactly what he's looking for. He probably, like, either lives in or near that house. He's probably already on guard, noticing that there's people missing.
So what do you guys think? Would you guys have just gone with the police? Like let's say that between the two of you, right, the actions play out the exact same way.
Oh, where Vaughn and
Vaughn and Marcus. Yeah, exactly. Like the homicide aspects played out the exact same way. Like your instincts kick in. I mean, either Hannah or you shoots the dad after, because you're afraid that they're gonna shoot, vice versa, and then both bodies dead on the ground.
It's interesting.
Are we starting at both bodies, or are we starting it after the kid dies? Because that will change.
Both bodies.
My version of the story is pretty boring. I would not move the bodies. I would get to the closest place where I had phone service, and I would call the police. I made a point to Jose while we watched this that I would not go back into the town and talk to the town, because they're all related, and it's a small town, and I'm not dealing with the tribal justice system. I'm getting away, and I'm calling the police.
It's weird to say that. It feels like the safest thing to do would go into a sheriff's office with your arms held out and say, please fucking arrest me.
Yeah. But first, come help me grab these bodies.
Yeah. I'll show you where they are. This is very fucked up.
Yep.
I'll probably never eat again, so,
Yeah, and it's so interesting just, watching the movie and just the sense of inevitability about the whole thing, right? It just being like it was always going to come to this aspect some way or another, whether it was 3 years from now when they inevitably found the body. Because even Marcus, as he was digging, he's like, they'll eventually find this body. Like I'm not acting as though they're not gonna ever find this body, which is why I need to fucking dig through this kid's brain real quick in order to be able to take out this bullet. So he was already privy to the fact that this was a shit plan already.
They expose themselves to so much anxiety and stress with this game that they played. Like, going back to the town was the beginning of it. Like, from there, it's like, oh, we have to go to the bonfire because somebody asked us to.
First, and then the bonfire.
Well, it's a million things in a row,
Yeah.
and it's just thing after thing after thing. Like, in order to not look suspicious, we have to do this song and dance.
That very aspect is what made me think about Crime and Punishment so much, is because at that point you're so alienated from what a normal person does that you have to begin pantomiming. Okay, what would a normal person who didn't just fucking murder a child
what
do?
Would I do if I hadn't murdered
exactly.
that kid?
What would I do if I didn't have this dark sin right blotching my son?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, and then,
and I'm sure that fucks with the decision-making process too, right? Like,
100%.
Now you're overthinking every
Yeah, exactly.
decision.
Yeah, normal people wouldn't think this much.
What are you doing thinking so much?
Yeah.
You're guilty as some
Yeah, exactly. Who'd you kill?
Who'd you kill?
Did you kill somebody?
Did you? Looking a little jumpy.
Yeah, and it's just that. Like, they had said they would be in the town. To me, that's, if nothing else, that's the reason you need to come clean right away.
Mm-hmm. Also telling people that you were boozed up hunting, like, willingly, like...
Yeah.
But again, at the same time, it's like you're like how the lies corner you, right? Because it's like how are you gonna explain to people that you have a queasy stomach? You know what I mean? Aside from telling them that it's because you got too drunk last night,
which is true, and it's the best to have truths in your lies, and it's the best out for why you look so shitty today, as opposed to anything else.
Yeah.
So it's and like the people knew that they had been seen at the bar drinking and like dancing and probably walking across town.
But maybe this is just our naivete about Scottish law. Maybe they're just super hardcore with people that are have drink and illegally hunt and
Yeah, in America, we're all drinking and firing off guns all the time.
Well, yeah.
But probably a lot more anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Oh no,
it's weird that
I grew up in a small town that was not sarcasm.
Right.
I'm serious.
Yeah. You said something during the movie about how you might not be up to this level of forensic knowledge and what we're capable of, but when Marcus says something along the lines of like that bullet's as good as my fingerprint, it does make me wonder if because there's also the line in the beginning when they're hunting about him forgetting to bring his own ammo and how that was kind of an issue and now he has to use Marcus's gun. So it's like maybe they have like a ammo like track like, okay, this person bought this ammo for this gun.
Yeah, like it's like a government, like all gun stores are government owned.
Right.
So it's like when you buy bullets, like the government knows what you're using those bullets for.
Right.
Well, and I mean the type of gun you have is registered too.
Right.
So it's like even if you make it less complex than that and it's like we found a bullet and we're like we know the bullet is for this kind of gun, who's been in the area with that kind of gun? Like it's gonna limit down your options very quickly.
Especially considering they were the only hunters out
Yeah.
at the end of the season.
Only one.
It was always like a loaded deck in that way.
Yeah, so I mean the moral of the story is just be honest if you're gonna end up murdering a kid, really. I mean
yes. Hot take.
Yeah, honestly. That's the lethal introspection.
That's what we're delivering to you now.
Though, like what I gotta give this movie that I really enjoyed about it is whole movie, start to finish, there are no bad guys. It's just a bad situation, and I can empathize with every single character in the movie.
Oh, 100%. 100%. I felt for everybody. Everybody was. I mean, even Marcus, as he was trying to actively justify the situation in the room, when they were talking to each other, and Vaughn was just plainly being like, "No, man, you're wrong. Like we did, like what we did was wrong." Yeah, exactly. Like we wouldn't have to be sitting here justifying what we did if what we think was correct.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and what a butt clencher, man! The whole movie. I don't know about you, but it like not only did it grab my attention, but it was just a sphincter clencher the whole time, not knowing what was going to happen next. And you don't get many like good thriller-esque movies like that. This one knocked it out of the park.
Yeah, it was very economical with its time, and
doesn't feel too long or too short.
No, not whatsoever. I don't really feel like I need to know any more about the movie. No, I don't really feel like I need to know any more about any of the characters. Like they did a really good job with the nonverbal, like communication between the townfolk. Where you can really feel as though this is a very tight knit community, and everybody's feeling the situation at hand, and even the fact that, Logan being the not the impromptu, but like the unsaid leader of
unofficial mayor.
the unofficial mayor essentially of the town, like gets essentially like superimposed by the anger, like, and even he can feel it. Like there's like only so much authority that I have in this position, that I have to give them something, like.
Well, yeah, and that's the problem too. Is Logan, especially, he might be any other guy in that group if he hadn't also been so concerned about the town. And they made that clear from the beginning. Is he was trying to protect his family simultaneously while protecting the town.
Right, yeah. It's true. Yeah, that is the only reason why Brian didn't end up kicking their ass when they walked back into the bar the second time.
Well, and it's a good thing it's not Brian's town, because that town would be in big trouble. He was not having any of it.
No, they'd have been dead a long time ago.
Yeah, as soon as he found them, he'd have killed them in the woods, I think.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, but he shot a shotgun right at their Jeep,
Yeah, head range through the back window.
Yeah, so he would have been completely satisfied with having gotten one of them at like that, probably.
Even the passenger seat.
Yeah.
It is interesting though, the idea though of a scapegoat, because that's what Marcus was.
I don't know if it was so much a scapegoat as it was just genuine eye for an eye. Yeah. Because the scapegoat would require somebody who's gotten no actual skin in the game.
Right.
But is
two people died.
Yeah, that's true.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not really an even exchange either.
Oh, but see, at that point, then it showcases how kind then the town people are willing to be. That they're not going to,
Yeah, I don't think it was kind. I think in a way, and that's probably what...
Well, it traumatizes us, too.
Right.
Like, yeah, but
they're like, okay, we won't kill both of them, but he's got to do it. Like, he's got to be... And then he'll take that with him.
The thing with that is that protects the town, too.
Yeah.
Yep.
If shit goes sideways, that's who shot him, technically.
Yep. And if the town needs to make up a story about how they, in their scuffle of trying to figure out who murdered who, they ended up killing each other. You know what I mean? Like, well, that's just how them towny people are, Like,
it's the towny justice, man.
The big city does that to people, it seems. I hear them gangs all over the place, so.
It's an incredibly captivating movie, but it is hard to watch, I think. It is a constant strain.
Yeah. I like that. I don't know what if
that's what we're looking for.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And
my favorite part of the movie, though, hands down, and I think it's fun if we just go around the room for favorite part of the movie, but the first time I watched it, I wasn't fast enough for the shot scene when it first happened. And I wasn't sure. I was like, is this like a hallucination? Like, what happened?
I thought so too.
So this time, I even asked Matt what it was the first time I watched it when he was watching that scene, because I was like, I don't understand what happened there. And I paused it to replay that, to have that conversation. But this time, I watched so carefully, because this is only the second time I've watched it, and I wanted to see if I could see that kid before the scene. You don't. You see him when the shot is fired.
If I may add, that was still around the time where I wasn't quite sure as to my footing when it came to the movie, supernatural, you know what I mean, like day-to-day kind of aspect of it. I thought perhaps that was going to be the beginning of the supernatural aspect of the movie, you know, like those kind of like flashing kind of things that, you know, like that happen every once in a while. I was like, oh shit, like Ghost Child in the Wood.
Ghost Child in the Woods. Fuck!
Yeah, I mean, for a second, that's where my mind went, you know, because the woods can do that to you, you know, like they're just...
How many ghost children have you seen in the woods? I was like,
well,
too many.
Back to the lawyers.
Yeah. But...
Jose's lawyer said he has seen none.
Yeah. Yeah, it's very important to my story that I've seen no ghost children.
Oh, sweet Jesus.
Yeah, no, I personally, to agree, to add on to your favorite, to the awesomeness of your favorite part, you know, it was so, it was so teetering to me because I also wasn't really sure where they were going to take it, you know, because my mind was like supernatural symbolism, like, or like, and like it wasn't until like the
flashback. It could have
or
been.
It could have been a flashback. Yeah, it could have been so many things. I was like, does that kid represent the deer? Like,
the soul of the deer is a child
with a blue jacket. Yeah,
the deer is a person who can morph into animals.
Yeah, I wasn't sure. I mean, what's Calibre gonna tell you in terms of like where the movie's gonna take you,
Outside of the fact that a gun is involved, nothing.
Yeah. Yeah. How about you?
Yeah, favorite. Well, it's hard to argue with that one because it's just like the hammer drop of the movie. But I remember.
It's like the Hereditary scene.
Yeah. Yeah. No shit, right? I just remember for me. I don't know if there was a favorite scene, but it's the overwhelming takeaway feeling of like of thinking about that whole guilt process and what that might do to a person, because and maybe that's just from having read Crime and Punishment prior to this and sort of being primed to feel all those, get into all those like guilty thinking things, and yeah, so it was a takeaway for me, like that stress, the horrible, awful stress that you'll have to carry with for the rest of your life, and your life is ruined. Because I'm like a worrywart, and I think about crazy, terrible shit that might happen all the time, and I often think about what if I accidentally killed somebody on the road in a car accident, and like how fucked up my life would probably be from there on out, regardless of the circumstances. So that was my biggest takeaway.
Yeah, no one
for
could ever make a
context, Matt drives for a living.
Yeah, I drive a truck around.
He doesn't just stress himself out about that out of nowhere every time he drives to the gas station. It's like, what
It could
if I
happen.
kill somebody?
Well, I mean, that is really probably what could happen at the most, because you feeling casual about your driving probably puts you at less on edge than you would in a professional setting, because you're like, oh, it's my job, so it's like I have to like really be, you know.
And it's a big truck, like I'll probably be fine, but fuck, yeah. So
I gotta say though, that's like
stress.
what you were alluding to there. I mean, maybe even directly speaking to is, I mean, we just watched Creep the last time. I believe that was the last time.
Yep.
And that's a big part of the reason that I like Creep is because it's not the same kind of movie, but it gives you the same kind of thinking where you're considering what you would do the whole time.
Right.
And I really enjoyed that aspect of a movie.
I think those are the most fun movies, in my personal opinion, is when the protagonists are more character vehicle than anything, and like you as the, you know, you as the viewer can really get, you know, inside of their mind and be like, okay, how would I control you in this situation? You know, like would we push the same buttons and levers as the director and like screenwriter decided to go, you know?
Yeah.
And I love a movie where I feel like, yep, that's what I do. Yep, that's what I do. Like, that's, like, those movies for me are always, even if they're silly, always get very, very high, you know, high rating in my mind.
If I can relate to them on a personal level.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And
but this wasn't that for you, I imagine.
No. You know, again, like, if I were kind of stuck already in their position, you know, I can kind of see why it is that they ended up that way, and it's one of the reasons why I rate the movie so highly in my mind, because at no point did I think these guys are just being really fucking stupid. Because even though their choices at the end of it all were kind of pretty fucking stupid, it was driven by the the fear, the testosterone of the moment, all of the everything about it, just was leading to bad decisions, and Marcus most of all was trying to make the best out of a really really shit situation. He was trying his best to try to be proactive the whole time. Maybe that was the cocaine talking, but but at the end of the day, the man was moving, the man was shaking, right? Like he was trying to do something. He wasn't trying to pin the blame on his friend. He wasn't trying to actively eschew his responsibilities, about it. He's like, no, we're in this together. We're trying to figure this out together,
That's something that I feel like we have to call out for Marcus. My impression of Marcus through watching the movie initially is this guy's not taking any concessions. Two people died today and he's trying to make everything normal. Like that didn't happen. And he's to me that's just not realistic. But he did, and I even thought about this time during this watch, is he took responsibility for the entire thing.
Mm-hmm.
He was willing to fix every square inch of it. He's willing to dig the hole himself. He's willing to get the bullet out of the kid's head himself. He didn't ask for any help. He was just and he didn't shoot the kid.
Yeah. Yeah, the only thing that one could even say was perhaps a more selfish aspect was the fact that the bullet was his ID bullet, right? So he was just worried about the fact that they would always come knocking to him first, But at the end of the day, whatever, right? The very, very high stress situation, from a non-high perspective, it's always very easy to critique, those kind of moment-to-moment things.
But they took us with them, like you said, and that's what more can you do, really?
Yeah, exactly. And they got their comeuppance as well as I would have liked it. I really like the fact that I like the directorial nature of the movie, wherein once they're caught, it really does feel as though the movie kind of puts you in almost the POV of the townsfolk at that point. You're kind of more behind Logan's back, more behind Brian's back, in terms of the shots and stuff like that. So you're kind of on their side, and you're yeah, what are we gonna do with them? Yeah, we caught him. Yeah, we caught him. So what are we gonna do with them?
Well, and they did that so good from the other perspective in the end. One of my favorite things about the scene with the first shot is the silence afterwards, where you're just looking at both the characters. You're looking at the one who shot the kid and the one who just watched it, and they don't say anything. They're both just frozen. And that makes you feel what they're feeling, because that's what I'm doing too. We're all just trying to process and catch up with what we think we just saw.
Yeah, solid movie. Wonderful recommendation, guys. I'm glad we did it.
I'm glad you liked it.
Yeah. And I'm hoping that whoever was bothers to listen will appreciate our takes. Yeah. Anything else?
No,
Actually, well, hold on. Let me tell you my favorite part. I didn't get to say my favorite part.
I thought you agreed with mine.
I just try to add to your favorite part. But I think my favorite part was something, was a very subtle scene when they were driving in the Jeep, right? And they were talking to each other about oh, sweet, but we just passed, that area. I liked the tension of that scene, and them feeling oh shit, can go one way or the other really, really fast. Because they, I liked also the really quick use of the rear brake light. It turned all red really, really fast, and I thought for a second, oh shit, things gonna go down. Oh no, it was just a normal, again, just always just oh shit, when
why are we stopping?
Yeah. Exactly. We shouldn't search here. No,
let's go further.
But also, I thought perhaps, and this was just my conjecture as I was watching the scene, that I really like when a scene packs a whole bunch of potential in it, that even if they don't use it, you can feel they could have even gone a different way. And because the local people had just fixed their car, it could very well be that the local people could set up a little phone or something, recording them as they're talking to each other.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Talking to each other about the whole situation and about it, and then at the end when they're all there, you know what I mean? They could just take them to the woods, play the playback, you know what I mean, and catch them there too. The movie could have gone there in that way too. That's what I really like about the movie, is the fact that there's so much potentiality that even with the cemented branching that they decided to go go with, and bravo with what they decided to go with. There's still so many other ways that the thing could have played out. They could have gotten their come up in so many different types of ways too.
I don't know if you guys felt like this as well, but I found it so strange that they were being pulled in to go help look for this guy's missing brother-in-law, basically, and his son. So, like, for me, when they got asked to go out to join the search party, I was like, these people already found the bodies. They're taking them out into the woods to kill them, was, like, my thought for that. But
Yeah,
that's the
that's
paranoia aspect.
For
It gets
sure.
into you.
I think at that point, it kind of, taking them along probably satisfied both Logan and Brian at the same time, right? Because I'm sure Brian was already like, these fuckers probably have something to do with it, just off the top of, you can imagine that side conversation probably happening,
Right.
and Logan's like, hey, we don't know that. Let's take them out tonight with us, you know what I mean?
So they know where they are.
Yeah, exactly.
when
At
they
least
find
we have
out.
an eye on them, the whole time. We find them, we don't find them, you know what I mean? At
They're
least
not
we'll
100 miles away
Yeah,
by the time we
exactly.
figure out what happened.
See, again, like, it's so great being able to just, be able to fill in those pieces so smoothly, that with just a short amount of time and characterization that you can already, like, imagine all these extra scenes that, like, fill in, the what you actually do see in terms of, like, why things occur. And the way
Yeah,
they
that's true. We never get to see any conversations just with townspeople without our main characters.
Yeah,
there.
they always have to be there in order for us to be able to hear something, because otherwise, like, even within that festival area, everybody was too far away to hear. The only time that you even heard a whisper was a potential whisper that they could also hear from how far they were at.
That's a good point, because the scene, and that's probably why I don't ever forget this scene, but the scene after they capture both of them, and it's next morning early, we get to see a scene where we're outside, and just three, like Logan and his brother and one other guy, are walking out to the barn. And that's probably the point where they decide to shift our perspective and feel it from their side.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Because
Yeah,
that's our first, I think that's our only scene that we experience without the main characters.
Yeah.
That
maybe.
seems about right.
Maybe.
Yeah.
I'm not sure, but it might be.
Mm-hmm. Well, awesome. And unless anybody has anything else to say, I think we can lock this one down.
Oh man, it's been great.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Well, everyone have a good day and a good night.
Good night.
Good night.